The Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab episode 855 for Monday, February 1st, 2021. Greetings, folks, and welcome to the Mac Observer's Mac Geek Gab, the show where you send in your questions, you send in your tips, you send in your cool stuff found. We collect some cool stuff found and tips of our own. We try to answer your questions. Sometimes we answer our own questions. Whatever we do, we assemble it into an agenda that is built such that we hope, the aim is that each of us gets to learn at least 5 new things. 5 new things each and every time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include TextExpander.com/podcast, mintmobile.com/MGG, helixsleep.com/MGG, and Linode.com/MGG. We'll talk more in depth about each of those a little bit later, of course. And we'll talk a little bit in depth about how sponsorships work, because there's some things happening that you as a podcast listener should know about. But that'll be later in the show. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, ready to learn 5 new things, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in Fairfield, Connecticut, getting ready for the storm that's brewing. This is John F. Braun.
Yeah, that's right. We're getting in. It should be, I think each of us are due to get about a foot in the next, in the early part of this week. So, yeah. Well, that's just how it goes. Life in New England, as it is. All right, let's do this, John. So you want to start us off with a little iOS 14-ish, 14.4? Can I say
yes?
I know I'm already pulling us on a tangent, but when I say 14.4 and when I write it, for some reason I have this like warm, nostalgic feeling about our 14.4 modems and when we got those. So I know that's like massive old school, but there you go. So,
anyway. Is it 144.12 squared?
Yes.
Maybe not.
Yes.
Okay. That's what jumps out at me. But anyway, so right after we did the last show, a day or two later, Apple released iOS 14.4. And you should get it for a number of reasons. One is it adds some features, and I'll talk about one of them. The other is that there's a lot of security stuff that they patched up. So update now, if not sooner.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, agreed. This is one of those that's like more important than usual from a security standpoint. So, yeah. You want to talk about one of those?
There's another security thing. I should share this with Andrew, but have you heard about this? I read there was a sudo exploit.
I saw something like that. Yeah, that there's I did not dig into it. But yes, you're right.
I mean, I read the thing. It didn't mention Mac OS specifically, but the version of sudo that is in Mac OS is the version that could be a problem. So
interesting.
Be careful out there. Don't let people run sudo on your machine.
Yeah, no kidding. That's a good. I mean, that's good advice, even if there is no exploit. Sudo in and of itself is an exploit, I think. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
But anyway, so yep, Todd wrote in and let us know about that. And so one of the features that they added, so we did have somebody mention, we were pondering why there was a Bluetooth device setting on Elliot's setup, but not on ours. And it's because he was running the 14.4 beta. But anyway, so 14.4 lets you do a whole bunch of things. Yeah, I can go through some of these. Smaller QR codes can be read by the camera. If you didn't know, if you run the camera app and you put it up next to a QR code, it'll resolve it and go to probably a website.
Yeah, I've found that it will only go to websites. Have you been able to get text out of a QR code on just with the default iOS 14.4 thing?
I would have to build one with just text in it.
Yeah, correct. I have one with just text in it that I was looking at the other day, and it like the app got confused. So I downloaded QR Reader or something from the App Store, and then that showed me, the full contents of the QR code. Yeah,
because you could have a lot of fun building your own barcodes.
Sure. Yeah, I agree.
I'll tell you a little story. So we have self-service lottery machines here in our state.
Okay.
And to verify your age, they scan your license. And on our licenses, there's a barcode called a PDF 417, and it's not secure in the least. And it has all your information, your name, your address, and your date of birth.
Right.
So I created my own barcode that indicated my date of birth was something other than my date of birth, and saw if I could fake the machine out. And yep.
No kidding.
I made a barcode that said I was 100 years old, and it was like, oh, okay, you can buy lottery tickets.
You're still allowed. That's right. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, they don't. They don't secure the barcode in any way, and they could, but they don't.
Right.
So
Right.
it's the fish shake at our state and any other state that has that out in the open.
PJ in the chat room at live.macgeekgab.com says that QR codes are good for sharing Wi-Fi, SSID, and passwords too, which that's not a bad idea to get for your house.
Well, I believe the Eero client will let you generate one if you want someone to.
That's correct.
Yeah, it'll generate, and then you can share it with the person you want to log into your network without revealing the password, I guess.
Right. And a shout out to Dr. Dream, who pointed out that in the chat room that not only is 12 squared 144, but also negative 12 squared is 144, because it's not just John and I that are the geeks here. We're all geeks. All geeks are welcome. You don't have to be a geek here. Everybody's welcome. It's how it goes. So.
What else did they put in here? Oh, yeah, another thing, which I thought was kind of interesting. 14.4 will yell at you if you have a non-Apple camera component in your iPhone 12. I don't know how much of a problem that is in the real world, but... Right.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
I mean, I suppose you could go to a repair shop that uses non-Apple parts if your camera's broken, so don't do that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Will it not work, or does it just, I think it just tells you that you're not.
It tells you, but their statement, and they have a support article somewhere about it, but their statement is that even though the camera will work, you probably will not get good pictures because it's not an Apple camera.
Sure.
It's somebody else's. So.
That makes sense. Yeah. Right. As we've said many times, the magic that is Apple's camera's ability to take pictures really is a marriage of hardware and software, and quite frankly, probably more software than hardware. I mean, they put not terrible cameras in these things, but you know, all the software that pulls all that stuff together and does all the crazy math, and thanks, Griffin, it, you know, makes it so that you can take these low light pictures that you can't even see, and then it's like, oh yeah, it looks great. You know, that I think maybe that's where Apple's going with this. Is like, look, you know, the software rewrite assumes that you're using the exact camera that we put in there. And if that's not it, then yeah, your pictures could suffer. So yeah. Cool. All right.
And there's some other, there's some other stuff, but you know, we're going to link to the, it's already in the show notes. There's the info from Apple. So,
but yeah, go through, as we talked about last week with the Bluetooth device type and the headphone safety and all of that. Go through your Bluetooth devices and make sure that your phone knows which of them are headphones and which of them are not. And that is possible in 14.4. You go into settings Bluetooth and you tap the little I next to each of your Bluetooth devices, and most, but not all, of them will let you select. Like my car, I choose car radio instead of, headphone. But for some folks, it defaults to headphones if it doesn't know better. So if you're using something like, one of those Rove car adapters or the Amazon car adapter, those might show up as headphones and then start giving you trouble with headphone safety like we talked about last week. So make sure you go set that right. Or just confirm that it's right. So, all right, you want to take us to Mike, John?
All right. Mike says, hey, guys, you may have answered this question already. We may have. And if so, please let me know which episode. I've exhausted the foo on this one. I have a 2018 Mac Mini with the small internal SSD and a 4 terabyte external where my local user directories are held. The issue is I'd like to have all the files in iCloud Drive stored locally also on the external drive. Is this possible? I must use OneDrive for some work and personal stuff, and it's very easy to locate the main folder and tell it to bring everything local also. Help! All right, well, we can help here. So it's not entirely obvious, but that stuff is stored locally. In home, library, mobile documents. It's just not obvious that that's the location. And I actually verified on my setup. I looked at my latest CCC clone, and sure enough, the documents that were in that directory were on that drive as well. So
that is true as long as you don't have optimized Mac storage turned on. If you have optimized Mac storage, as I'm thinking about this, if you've got optimized Mac storage turned on, then you will only have some local copies, not all. And you do that in System Preferences, Apple ID, iCloud, and there's a checkbox for optimized Mac storage. So just make sure if you want all local copies, make sure you uncheck that optimized box, and then it will just have everything local. So that's one piece of it. And then the other piece, John, is, he was asking, can I store this on an external drive? And the answer is not really, no. I've heard of some people trying to symlink that folder, the home library mobile documents folder, to something on an external drive. But I've also heard that does not end well. So I think the answer is no, unfortunately, unless you store your entire home folder on an external drive, then it's fine. So that's not, it's not a default configuration, but it is a supported configuration. It's not entirely easy to do, but Apple has knowledge base articles about it, and we'll find one and put them in the show notes if somebody in the chat room doesn't get there first. So, but storing your home folder on an external drive, yeah, because you can do that. So, I don't know. Anything else on this one, John?
Nope. Okay.
Richard, while we're talking about home folders, Richard had sent in a tip to us, John, where about some tricks that you can do to prevent a folder from syncing to iCloud Drive. It's a techmentor.uk article. And if you name a folder with .nosync at the end of the folder name, so like large files .nosync, Nosync, that folder and anything in it, including subfolders, will not sync to iCloud. So that, I found that to be an interesting thing. And I don't have the link here, but I'm going to look for it. There is, I believe that Howard Oakley at Eclectic Light had an article about no sync and that sort of thing. Yeah. Oh yeah. Here's the article. Okay. So it's telling us what folders will and won't sync, but in addition to things with .nosync or .tmp, anything named Dropbox or any of the things that Dropbox would use, it won't do, because it wants to avoid a storm where Dropbox and iCloud Drive are syncing and non-stop with each other. That would be bad. So if you put your Dropbox and iCloud Drive, it's going to sync to Dropbox, presumably, but not to iCloud. Anything named iPhoto Library, and presumably now Photos Library too, will not sync. And there's a couple others. So I'm actually going to put that as the link in the show notes. Sorry, techmentor.uk, but Howard Oakley's link is better, quite frankly. So there you go. Yeah, interesting stuff. I never knew about that .nosync thing. That's super handy, man. Right? I mean, I think so.
Yep.
Cool. All right. All right. What are we looking at here? We've got some cool stuff found. We've got some questions. I want to take a minute, John, and talk about our first two sponsors if we're good with this iCloud stuff.
We are good.
All right, sweet. Our first sponsor today is Linode at Linode, linode.com/MGG, which is where you can go to simplify your infrastructure and cut your cloud bills in half with Linode's Linux virtual machines. They let you develop, deploy, and scale your modern applications faster and easier. And so you're developing a personal project, right? I mean, it's pandemic. We're doing all kinds of things. You're going to need a server to put them on. So whether it's personal or business or maybe a blend of both, you're going to need a server, and you want server nerds to take care of those things for you so they're not your headache. And then you can just do the stuff that you want to do. And this is what Linode is for. Well, it gets even better than that, because you can get started on Linode today with $100 in free credit just for being a listener of Mac Geek Gab here. It's true. $100 in free credit at Linode just for being a listener of Mac Geek Gab. Well, all you have to do is go to Linode, linode.com/MGG, sign up, and you're good to go. Because if it runs on Linux, it runs on Linode. Visit linode.com/MGG and click on the Create Free Account button to get started. Our thanks to Linode for sponsoring this episode. Next up is Smile at TextExpander.com/podcast. That's right. We get to talk about TextExpander this month. I'm super excited because I love TextExpander. It is an app that I use all the time. And if I accidentally quit it on my Mac, I know it immediately because I suddenly feel like I'm typing with mittens on. I no longer have all of the beautiful little shortcuts and everything at my fingertips like I do when TextExpander is running, which is why it's running all the time, including right now on my computer. You get to say goodbye to repetitive text entry. You get to say goodbye to spelling and message errors. You get to say goodbye to trying to remember the right things to say. If you've said it once, you can make it a little better, right? And then you can put it into TextExpander so that it is there for you in the future. Because when you use TextExpander, you can say the right thing in just a few keystrokes. Way better than copy and paste. Way better than scripts and templates. You got to check out TextExpander. And you can take your time back in the new year and increase your productivity with TextExpander and save some money, because listeners of Mac Geek Gab get 20% off your first year at TextExpander.com/podcast. Go check it out, TextExpander.com/podcast. Our thanks to TextExpander for sponsoring this episode. All right. Funnily enough, on our first cool stuff found here, we have yet another link to Eclectic Light. So, Howard keeps us geeks doing things. And it's from Steve, who linked us to a piece that Howard wrote about all the startup modes for M1 Macs. We talked about this in the show. Apple has completely revamped the way things start up. Most of the things that you can get to for starting up an M1 Mac are just done by holding down the power button, waiting until the startup options screen comes up, which is great. Safe mode, recovery mode, diagnostics mode, the startup manager, setting the default startup volume, and verbose mode. I think we've still got to do with a I don't think you can do it with Command V anymore. I think it has to be done with NVRAM, but you might be able to do it with Command V. He doesn't say one way or another. There is no resetting of the SMC though, John, which makes sense because there's potentially no SMC. I don't know, but we might need a way to reset NVRAM at times. Not sure about that. But anyway, this article's great. It walks through all of the different things, and it's worth just taking a read through so that you know. But really, the thing to remember with an M1 Mac is just hold down the power button, and that will bring up the startup menu for almost everything you need, which is super handy. So I like that they've simplified it in that sense, because, man, what a pain in the neck that was. So, yeah. Anyway. I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Braun? Any thoughts on any of that?
I'm good on non-M1 Macs for now. So
right, that's right. Yeah, of course. Cool. Okay. I had the opportunity to check out a few things here, John. The first were the Earin A3s, which were announced at CES. Earin was the first company to make true wireless earbuds, like we know with AirPods now and AirPods Pro and, the Anchor things that I mentioned, or the Soundcore things I mentioned recently. The A3s are super light, and you won't lose them in your ear, but they're really small. They just pop in your ear. I feel like a spy. You know, John, when you're watching those movies or TV shows about like the FBI or whatever, and they're like, okay, well, we got to drop a little earbud in your ear so that you can hear, but nobody knows it's there. It's not quite that small, but it's almost that small. And it's an open, they call it an open audio design, which means it is not built to seal in your ear, so you can hear sounds around. Wouldn't be good on an airplane, I don't think. I mean, it might be fine for some people, but with all the ambient noise, you wouldn't like it. But for, walking around a city or exercising or something like that, where you want to be able to hear ambient sounds, and the sound is great, and calls are great. It's got like 5 hours of playtime. The case has wireless charging. I feel like that's gonna be a table stakes now, because having the ability to put something in the case, and I think Apple was the first to do that, at least that I know of, where you just take the AirPods Pro case and throw it on a cheap pad and you're done. It charges it right up. So anyway, that's the Earin A3s. They're $199. They sound great. I'm super stoked about these things. Super stoked. Any questions on that before I move on to the next one, John?
Nope.
All right. Cool. Hyper, our friends in that make all kinds of like charging solutions, have their Hyperjuice. It's a gallium nitride 66 watt USB-C charger, John. So this thing has 2 USB-C ports, each capable of 66 watts, unless they're sharing it, in which case it's split between them, and a USB-A port that's capable of what's called Quick Charge 3.0 at 36 watts. So if you've got devices that'll pull that much power, it's there. And this thing is not much bigger than the little brick that you get from Apple, like with an iPad or something. I mean, this thing, the web page, I mean, it's huge on the web page. It's way bigger on the web page than it actually is in person, at least for me. This thing is tiny, man. I wish they had put it next to like a phone or something so you could really see. But it's great. It's $60, so you get what you pay for with things like this. But having the 2 USB-Cs and the USB-A with all that power, you charge your iPad, your laptop, your phone, your watch, whatever, 3 of those all at once, in fact, and it's still just tiny. So fits in a plug and fits in your travel bag when we can do that again and all that good stuff. So yeah, man, that's good. But the one that I was I should say, I'm actually really stoked about that. That was sort of a sleeper thing. They were like, oh, can we send this to you and check it out? I'm like, yeah, okay, another charging brick. And I was like, whoa, it's really small. So then it made it to the show. Like, the Nomad Base Station Pro, we talked about this when a listener recommended it a few episodes ago. So this is what Apple promised us with AirPower, John, where it is a Qi pad with lots of Qi coils in it and is built to charge 3 devices at once. But it's just a pad, and you just throw your phone down, you throw your AirPods down, and boom, it starts charging. It's really kind of magic. There's 3 little lights on it that tell you which of the 3, I think it sort of localizes it to left, middle, right, and it tells you which of them. But I think there's, I don't know, I think they said there's like 18 different coils in there, and it knows how to focus on your device by just throwing it down on this pad. It's pretty cool, man. It does charge my phone in that Grip to You case with the rubber strap on it, but then the phone gets unhappy because it's, I think that case, they say it's built for Qi. I've had success on some Qi pads, but obviously not on others with the Grip to You case. But and this is one of them where it will charge it up and then that's the end. But man, this thing is like super cool to have. I'm trying to think of where the best place to have it would be. I suppose a bedside table, or it's maybe on your desk in your office or something. To me, a hotel room would be the perfect place for something like this, because you just get there and there's this big pad and you just throw whatever you want on it and you're good to go. So I don't know. It's impressive that this actually exists after not believing that AirPower ever could exist. So I was pretty stoked when I found it, John, or when I tried it, and it was like, holy crap, it actually works. Pretty cool, huh?
And how much is it?
That's a good question. I think it's $200.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah, that's a good question. Why is that not listed on the page that I have it on? Yeah, I think it's $200.
No, $199.
$199. Okay. All right, great. Yeah. Yeah. So again, you get what you pay for with something like this, but it does work. So if this is what you want, you're good to go. And they say that they've got an Apple Watch mount coming on this. That's interesting. Huh. It's not here yet. Yeah. Okay. So you would put your watch puck in this thing, and then it sort of, so this now makes it really nice for the bedside table. It clips onto the back of it. Oh, that's really interesting. I'll put a link to that in there. Yeah. Huh. See, this is why we do this show, because I love to learn about gadgets and I love to learn stuff. All right, John, you learned some stuff. You want to take us to Bill?
Oh, what did I learn here?
Sorry, I kind of jumped you on that one. Was there any more on the Nomad thing or no?
No. And actually, I like your idea of. Hold on, I'll find it. No, I like your idea. Hotels should buy these for their customers.
I mean, I think you'd pay at $200 a pop. I mean, of course, there'd be bulk discounts and all that stuff, but at $200 a pop, I feel like you're going to pay for that in the price of the hotel room to have one of these there. But for like a boutique, an upscale kind of hotel room, having something like this, it's super elegant because it's literally just a pad with like a little cushion on it, and you just throw your stuff down and boom, you're good to go. They'd have to put a label on it because no one would know what it was.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's that kind of elegance. It's really understated, and there you go. So, yeah.
All right. So Bill has a question. I'm setting up a 1 terabyte external SSD to use with my MacBook Pro running Big Sur. I want to be able to use Carbon Copy Cloner with it so I can boot from it if needed. I also want, and I also wanted a place to put my photo library, music, and iMazing backups and other files. How should I set it up? I knew how to do things before APFS. I would have made 2 partitions, but I am not sure how to proceed in APFS. Well, I proceeded to do this in APFS. So, with a spare SSD,
Okay.
I think it was a Crucial. So I had a 1 terabyte external SSD. So here's what you got to do. So first, you format it. Go to this utility. That's what it does. And when you format the drive, format as APFS. Make the scheme GUID partition map, though you're not going to actually be using partitions here, but that's what it's called.
Well, you'll have one partition.
Yeah. And the name can be whatever you want because it's not going to be really important in a moment here. You'll then see the drive show up. Under that, it'll show container, disk, and a number. And then under that, the whatever from the last step.
Like the name of the drive, the name of the volume from the last step?
Yes.
Yeah.
Untitled. And it defaults to untitled.
Sure.
The next step is delete untitled. And to delete it, you're going to see at the top of the disk utility screen a volume choice, and next to it is a plus and a minus. Minus deletes it. Then here is the thing that's slightly different here. So you're not going to add partitions. What you're going to add here are volumes. So once you delete that untitled volume, then go to click on the plus sign, which is going to add a volume. And here's the important part. So I created 2. I called one backup, and I called the other one media, which it sounds like that's what he wants to do.
Sure.
But the important part here is that when you create it, when you create the volume, you're going to see a size options ... button. That's where you want to go and set the size of the volume.
Got it.
So what I did, is when I first set it up, I set backup to 500 gigs and media to 500 gigs. That was kind of dumb because then I went into Carbon Copy Cloner and tried to set up a backup task. And so I indicated, my SSD, which is 1 terabyte and it has about 700 being used. You can see where I'm going with this. And then I selected the destination as the backup volume. Well, CCC said, well, no, there's not enough room for this. And I'm like, so I redid it and made that the backup one 900 gigs and the media one 100 gigs.
Couldn't you have just resized the backup one? Because that's APFS, right? Because it's just logically pointing. I'm pretty sure you could have just resized it. I think that's doable. There.
It wasn't clear to me where to go to resize it. So I just created, deleted them and created them again.
Sure.
So,
sure.
And yeah, and in the Finder, you'll see this. The volumes will show up. They'll say, yeah, I have 900 gigs or 100 gigs. And then when I set up the Carbon Copy Cloner job, a dialog comes up saying the destination must be modified if you require a bootable copy of Mac OS. So that convinced me that what I did was correct.
Correct. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's what you need to do. So the terminology is a little different, but the process is pretty much the same.
Yeah, you're right. There is no, man, I could have sworn that I was able to
resize the volume.
Yeah. And I've also, I don't want to mess with it because the only drive I have attached to this is the one that the show is recording to. So yeah. But I could have sworn that I not only was able to resize a volume, but also I could set a volume. I could create, let's say I could create 3 volumes, or in your case 2, and not set a maximum size on either of them, and just let them both use the pool of storage that was there. So if you had not put size limits on either of these volumes and just set up, you know, even if you had just left the untitled there, rename that to backup, then add another volume, call that media, I think Carbon Copy Cloner would have been like, fine. Like, it would have seen that there was a terabyte available for use for both of them. Mm-hmm. And then the amount of storage available would ratchet down for both as you used one or the other. So you approximated you did something that's analogous to a partition scheme where you fixed the size or the size limits of the volumes, but you don't have to do that. And I think you can even mix and match. So you could have, say, a Time Machine volume that you don't want to, use more than X number of gigabytes or terabytes or whatever. And then another volume that just uses whatever's left. You know, I think you can do all of that because APFS doesn't really care, because it's on an SSD. It's not storing. It's just using a blob of storage for everything. It's not actually, like you said, it's a volume, not a partition. So I think you might have been able to finagle that, but you're right. I can't find, of course I'm in Catalina because that's the safest way to do our recording setup these days. But so there might be something in Big Sur, but maybe not. So maybe somebody in the chat room at live.macgeekgab.com will let us know. I can't wait for my new chair to arrive. I ordered it in early December, so shipping delays. Shipping delays cause now I can't get it to squeak either. I was going to make a sound effect. Nope. Okay. The world is against me, John. Take us to David, if you would,
Hold
please.
on.
Oh.
No, mine.
No, yours won't squeak either. They don't squeak on demand.
Anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. David gives us kind of a follow-up here. Don't know if you have experienced this issue or not, but twice this week, my Apple Magic Mouse has become very sluggish, and the cursor greatly lagged behind the actual movement of the physical mouse. Searching online, I found the following. Hold down Shift and Option and click your Bluetooth symbol. Choose Reset Bluetooth Module. And that did the trick, and everything's working. So we've had a few people report, someone else wrote in and reported something similar, that their wireless input device, Apple input device, was sluggish. So there may be a bug in Big Sur.
Yeah. Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
But that reset Bluetooth,
I mean, this was a one-off. Yeah, somebody else said they had the same similar issue with their Magic Trackpad. So
interesting. All right. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, that reset Bluetooth thing is super handy. But it's got to be Shift and Option, right, John? Is that right? To get there, I think.
Yes.
Is the key. Yes. Shift Option. Ah, look at that. Yes. No. How come I'm not seeing that? Is that a Catalina thing? Oh, no. Shift Control Option. I have Option. Huh. How come I can't see this on mine? Shift Option. The Command Option? No. Option doesn't do it all by itself. Are you able to pull it up on yours, John? Huh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay. On Catalina, Shift Option, you'll see a debug menu and reset Bluetooth modules in the debug menu.
Thank you, sir. That'll do it.
Yeah, I think on Big Sur, it immediately it appears the menu is different. Okay.
It's different. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you. That's great. Helpful. All right. Cliff writes, he says, this feels like a novice question. There is no such thing as far as I'm concerned, Cliff. The answers are only obvious once you know them. And it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this stuff. And I will prove that right now. He says, when using Apple Mail, it never seems to scroll to locations based on keystrokes the way I would expect. For example, in Outlook, if I have the list sorted by person and then type N, it will scroll to the first N in the name column. If I keep typing quickly N-O, it will adjust to the last name starting with N-O. All right, fair. In Apple Mail, if I have the sort set by from and type N, it will go to the subject line starting with N. Is this just a huge mail flaw, or do I need remedial training? No, I don't think you need remedial training, Cliff. I did some testing with this in Big Sur this morning, and what I'm finding is that it's not consistent. The first time I was sorted by date, but then I tried this with other sorts, and it didn't seem to make a difference. The first time I typed J, it brought me to an email with the subject January invoice, because I got one from somebody the other day. Great. The second time I typed it, it brought me to an email from Jonathan. So I'm not sure what the logic here is and where it goes. I'm sure, but I am sure that this is Apple's attempt to guess at what we're trying to ask for, and therefore the target is moving, and we don't get to figure it out. If somebody knows, let us know at feedback@macgeekgab.com, because like Cliff, I am perplexed by this.
Yeah, I am too. What I'm not perplexed by, Dave, is the email address you just gave us, which is feedback@macgeekgab.com.
That is feedback@macgeekgab.com, and you are correct at that being correct, I think, as far as I know. All right. Bruce has a question. He says, do you have any experience working? Oh, no. Sorry. Where are we here? I have the wrong. No, I thought I had the right one. Did I have? Boy, I think I put the wrong email in here. Anyway, oh, right. He was asking about his like Unify stuff and Ubiquity, but it's not about that. It's about Terminal and M1 Max. He has a piece of software that he needs to run. For him, it happens to be to manage his Ubiquity Unify routers, which is great. But this is true for any of us. Stuff you run from the terminal. Most things that have previously been built for the terminal are compiled as Intel apps. Makes sense. That's how macOS and Macs were for a long, long time. Now, though, you've got two different platforms, and Terminal, an Apple app, like all other Apple apps, is universal now, meaning that it will run natively on both M1 and Intel Macs. Well, that creates a problem when you are trying to run an Intel app inside of the terminal that's running M1 code. Some things will run, most things are not happy about running. And so the trick is you have to run them inside an Intel instance of Terminal. So the way I did it was I duplicated the Terminal app on my Mac, and I named one of them Terminal Intel or Rosetta, but it doesn't matter. Call it whatever you want, just so you know what it is. Rosetta, of course, being the technology that, the name of the technology that translates an Intel app to run on M1. And then on this new one that you've named Terminal Rosetta or Terminal Intel, do a get info on it and check the box that says run in Rosetta. And you can do this with any universal apps. And when you do that, well, yeah, any universal apps. If it's an M1 only app, of course, no, you can't run it in Rosetta because there is no Intel code for it to run that way. But check the second instance of terminal to run this way, then run it. And now you have an Intel environment inside which you can run all of your Intel terminal apps, and everything should run just fine. That's been my experience. So that's the takeaway here is, and you can do this with lots of apps. And I know Flash has been deprecated, but as mostly an academic exercise, I made sure that I can say that accurately that I ran Flash on my M1 MacBook Air. And the way that I did it was I took a universal copy of Chrome, duplicated it, did this same little run in Rosetta trick, ran that, and then in running in Intel mode, Chrome will run Flash, or at least would. I haven't tried it since January 1st and when it was supposed to all go away. But running M1, it would not ever load Flash, which I found really interesting. I mean, I guess it makes sense. The Flash code that's inside Chrome is compiled to Intel. So when Chrome says it's universal, it's like, yeah, mostly universal. So anyway, found that interesting. And hopefully it helps somebody down the road. It's just one of those things to file in the back of your head when you're banging against the wall with it. It's like, wait, I can do it this way. And then you're good to, then you look like a genius. It's amazing. So yeah, it's good. We like to look good, John. It's, we're geeks. That's how it goes. All right. We have lots more questions, John. The next thing I want to do, though, is I want to talk about our next two sponsors, if that's okay for you.
Okay.
All right, cool. Listen, have you ever had a mattress that hasn't been quite right? I mean, it is terrible. And the problem is you don't know it necessarily because it happens gradually. And it can be bad news. And recently, I got to take the Helix Sleep Quiz to figure out what kind of mattress I want. Spoiler alert, I was matched with the Midnight model mattress because I wanted something medium and I sleep on my side. I hate to use the wrong cliche, but night and day is probably the right thing to use between what we were using before and what we're using with Helix now. And the great part is that Helix knows that we're all unique. And so they have all these different mattresses with firmness and cooling and all of this stuff. Really, really great stuff. And we've been super happy. We've had our Helix mattress for a couple months now. But you don't have to take my word for it because Helix was awarded the #1 best overall mattress pick of 2020 by both GQ and Wired magazines. So you get to go to helixsleep.com/MGG and you get to take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and then they'll match you to a customized mattress that'll give you the best sleep of your life. They have a 10-year warranty, 10 years, and you get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They'll even pick it up for you if you don't love it, but you will. So Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for Mac Geek Gab listeners at helixsleep.com/MGG. Go check it out now. Our thanks to Helix at helixsleep.com/MGG for sponsoring this episode. If you're like me, you like saving money and you like using your cell phone. If you're still paying insane amounts of money every month for wireless, why are you doing that? You can switch to Mint Mobile just like I did. It is the easiest way to save. It's crazy the amount of money I'm saving being on Mint Mobile because Mint Mobile is the first company to sell premium wireless online only. And that lets Mint Mobile maximize your savings with plans starting at just $15 a month. All plans come with unlimited talk and text and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You use your own phone with Mint Mobile. You keep your phone number, of course. It's super easy to transfer it in. Now, we did all 4 of our family's phones in like the 20 minutes that it takes to cook dinner one night. Seriously, all of them. And we were good to go. And they've got this thing where each person gets their own plan, which is great. So you mix and match your data the way you want, but they allow you to have one person. So my account gets to manage the whole family. And of course I get to pay for the whole family, but that's how that works. So to get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, Go to mintmobile.com/MGG. That's mintmobile.com/MGG. So you can cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/MGG. Our thanks to Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode. All right, John, we were talking with Cliff about, he said, remedial questions or something. And PJ in the chat room pointed out something. He said, and I like this. He said, my remedial training every week is Mac Geek Gab. And he says, sometimes I need to repeat the messages to sink in. This is part of the reason, and we know this. I mean, I need it too. It's just how our human brains work. This is part of the reason that we put chapter markers for every single question and every topic and every sponsor read, for that matter, in here in Mac Geek Gab. So it's in every episode. I can't say it's in every episode we've ever done. I think it's in every episode starting with like episode 28 or something like that, when Michael Johnston came on board and started doing all that for us back in the early days. But we put these chapters in. If your podcatcher, be it Apple's Podcasts or Overcast or Downcast or whatever, supports chapters, which all of the ones I just mentioned do, then you will be able to see chapters and you can navigate and go back. And it's also there, if we're talking about, like we started the show talking about iOS 14.4, if you don't have an iPhone, you only have a Mac, you can skip over that and just go to the next thing and go to the next thing. But you can also go back and navigate through. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that we have those chapters for you, because it's one of the things we do for all of you. You want to take us to Andrew with the next question, John?
Yes. So Andrew says, I have 3 Eero Pros in my house. While exploring the Eero app on my iPhone, and if you run the Eero app, you'll see that there's a activity thing on the bottom. So that's where to go to see this. I was looking at data usage and stumbled upon the category of Eero devices. So it shows not only all your devices that are registered, but it'll show the Eero devices themselves and show you the data traffic.
Sure.
Let's see. I mean, I can kind of condense this. He was seeing 11 gigabytes of download data for 1 week.
Just from his Eero devices.
Yes. So just the Eero devices category. Like I mentioned, when you go to this activity tab, and then I think you'll see upload and download, and you click on one of those, and then it'll list all your devices. And on the bottom is Eero devices. So that's, I guess, internal housekeeping or whatever they're doing. Yeah. So I mean, personally, 11 gigabytes of data a week for doing Eero stuff to me seems like kind of a lot.
I agree.
I mean, a speed test. I mean, I don't think a speed test. Eero will run a speed test every day, but I don't think a speed test uses that much data at all. So I don't know if it's their. I mean, they have some additional services that they offer, which may require them to download certain databases, right?
Probably. I know Eero and Plume are my 2 favorite mesh systems, especially for like consumer grade stuff, because they're cloud managed. And part of their cloud management is, like you said, there's this database that they keep of all the devices and what works best with each device. So like Wi-Fi standards aren't implemented equally across all devices. So they know, all right, if you've got this model Android phone, we need to treat that one differently when we roam this way. Plume is absolutely the best at this, but Eero's pretty good. So it's possible that database is moving back and forth with Eero for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And then it is cloud managed. So all of this data, the fact that, you have all these devices connected and all that stuff, that is stored in your profile on the cloud. So like that data is going back and forth too. So yeah, it makes sense. I've heard other people report this too, John. What you're seeing and what Andrew's seeing is absolutely expected, but it seems like,
now the other thing is that, so looking at the graph, so it breaks down the data into upload and download, and it shows that almost all of this Eero device data was for downloads.
Downloads.
I sent him a screenshot of mine, and maybe you could take a peek at yours while I'm bringing that up here, Dave.
I don't have this on mine because I'm using Eero for my Wi-Fi, but it's in bridge mode because I'm currently using my Synology router. Okay. So if I launch the Eero app and go to activity at the bottom, all I see is my speed test. So speed test results. Yeah. So I don't get, unfortunately, I don't get that that kind of data. I can get that data out of my Synology router. Because I do traffic management there. So I'll take a look and see if it's doing the same thing on mine. And I may do it during the show or I may do it after the show, depending on how long this conversation goes on.
And yeah, my setup, and so again, my setup, so I have 3 Eeros, 2 of the legacy and 1 of the beacons. But yeah, so mine shows 3.3 gigabytes for a week. And it's almost the opposite of his in that it's all upload data and not download data.
Interesting. I have to wonder if some of this is like devices connected via Ethernet that are just being incorrectly included in the Eero. Oh. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That seems like a lot. I am looking here for, let's say, download traffic from my router, and my iMac in the office is the big one. My M1 Air is the next one. The Xbox. It reminds me, my son is off at school, but Xbox lets him essentially remote in and use the Xbox here to play games with his friend who has an Xbox in his dorm room on the other side of campus. And the other night he called me and he was like, hey, do you have a minute? And I'm like, sure. He says, go downstairs, put this in. And we were playing NHL on the Xbox against each other. So it works. Anyway, so lots of data there, but I'm not seeing anything. Okay, here's one of my Eeros downloaded 1.2 gigs of data in the last week. Okay. Yeah. So I too am seeing this. I'm looking in the upload category. 165 megs for that same Eero last week. So, and it looks like that's the only Eero for me. It's only one of them. Well, I guess it nominates one to be the bandwidth hog and to sort of manage the flow, which makes sense. So I've got more downloaded than uploaded in the last week, John, for whatever that's worth. But it's doing it for me too. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's not a biggie because I don't have any data caps. But for people that have data caps, that I don't know if 11 gigs is going to put you over the top. I mean, I think the data caps that have been proposed are a little bit higher than that. But
it depends. Like the Comcast ones are 1.2 terabytes. But I've heard we've heard from listeners who have like 250 gig data caps. So. 11 gigs a week times 4 weeks. I mean, that's a third of your data cap almost. Like, I mean, it's getting there, so I don't know. That's, I don't know. That's not a third. I don't know why I was thinking it was a third. I was thinking 150, not 250, but still it's a significant amount. And mine is doing it. So we know, and I don't have any Ethernet devices plugged into my Eeros. My Eeros are plugged in Ethernet, but there aren't any devices hanging off of them. So it's not, at least in my case, it's not a, misreporting of things. So yeah, I'll reach out to them and ask them what the heck they're doing. That would be, that's good. All right, we'll do that. In the meantime, we will answer David's question. Moving right along, David says, I've been using Readle Scanner Pro since it came out, and their latest update doesn't allow me to rename the documents after I scan. The keyboard covers the text box, and I can't see what I'm typing. My guess is that this is a regression that they will fix. However, it leads to a good question. He says, I use the Scanner app every day, and I can't continue this way without the ability to rename files. So I'm looking at the App Store, and there are so many that I don't know which one to choose from. Any suggestions? And I do have a suggestion. And it's free, and you already have it. It's called the Files app. Of course, I realize that Apple hides the scan option very well in the Files app, and this may be why you aren't using it to scan any documents. It's less hidden in iOS 14 than it was in iOS 13, but it is still very much hidden there. So the way you find the scanning function in Files is you launch Files, navigate to your destination folder first. So get to where you want the scan to be saved, right? Then in the upper right, this is on iOS 14, in the upper right, there's a little ellipses in a circle, the 3 dots in a circle. Tap that, and then you should see scan documents there. And this is a very full-featured scanner. It will auto-detect the page and scan automatically if you want. So if you have to scan a 100-page book, super easy. You can have it scan in color, in black and white, in grayscale, all of that stuff. And then, of course, when it saves, you can rename the file because you're right there in the Files app and you can do whatever you want. And so anything that links with the Files app, like I scan to my my disk station all the time because I have Synology Drive linked to my Files app and I'm good to go. So that's the scanning app that I would recommend starting with because it's right there on your phone. So there you go. But John, you found another one on the phone.
Yeah. I found this out the other day. Or I don't know why. I just saw this icon and thought I'd click on it. So sure. I opened up a note in Notes on my iPhone, and I saw there's a camera icon there. And I'm like, oh, what happens if I press that? Well, if I press that, it says choose photo or video, take photo or video, and the same icon that you found, Dave, scan documents. So that's also available in the Notes app.
Awesome. Yeah, right. If you don't want to save it to a file, save it to your notes. Yeah.
Right. And here's the interesting thing. So I scanned a book cover. The title of the document defaults to the first few characters in the recognized text. So it's kind of OCR thing.
What? That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Huh. Wow.
Because we've had people ask about OCRing. Yeah. So it does OCR to title the document, which is nice.
Oh, I got to mess with that.
Because we had some.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we had people, and then I think here in, where is it? Notes. Speaking of scanning, I'm trying to find, I think Notes on the Mac also has a scan option somewhere.
Yeah, and I think like Mail, you can use your phone
here
to
we are.
Scan in, right?
Yes, yeah. So Notes on the Mac, go to the File menu, and then there's Import from Phone, and it shows JB iPhone 12 Mini. Okay, so that's neat. So it, I guess, wireless. Yeah, so it remotely uses it. So the Mac can use your phone as a scanner too. Which is kind of neat. And
as a picture taker, like you can. I've attached pictures to Mail by doing the same thing, like import from phone, and then it's like take the picture and boom, it's an attachment to Mail on my Mac, and yeah. This is the whole on the ecosystem thing that Apple does so well at. So, you want to take us to John? John.
Yes. All right, John.
Well, yeah, you're John. I was saying, do you want to take us to John, John?
Yes.
Right, yeah. Okay. His name's not John.
Yes.
Right.
No, I don't think so. All right, here we go. John has a question. And let me... All right. Me and my wife got new iPhones and watches, but we share an Apple ID. We cannot separate our health app data out from our two watches. Any ideas? Yes. So as far as I can tell, Dave, health data is tied to your Apple ID, and I wasn't able to find any provision within health to add a user. So I'll suggest a hack, but the solution here is set up another Apple ID on the other device.
Yeah.
Health at this point was not designed to support multiple users, I guess is the answer here.
Well, an Apple ID isn't meant to be shared amongst multiple users, but you're right. Like, I mean, both of these things are true. Yes. Yeah. That's the trick. I think what we share your hack. I have some ideas about this, but I'm curious what your hack
All
would
right.
be.
So if you look in Health, Dave, I've never done this, but it's kind of neat. So there may be a hack here that can let you do this. I don't know if I really like it. Okay. If you look in the Health app at the bottom, there's an item that says export all health data. So you may want to give that a shot. And when I selected that, it showed my Mac as a potential destination. So I said, yeah, send it to my Mac. And it then put it using AirDrop. And then it put a zip file in my directory. And then I double clicked on the zip file. And the zip file, and what's in, so health data consists of, I think, JSON. So I saw a whole bunch of JSON files, which is some standard for representing data, and a couple of XML files.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Now there is, I'm curious if anybody makes an app other than Apple that can deal with this data. And there is. I found a program called Health Data Importer. And I found a few articles that talked about it and suggested that you may be able to parse out or input selected data from it.
Makes sense.
So
yeah,
we've tried.
We've mentioned Health Data Importer on the show before for people like, when I think it's built for people that back up their phone, want to start from scratch, but want to get their health data back in. And that's the way to do it. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't like it. No, you're still going to run into this problem again. There is a hack here. You're right. But I don't like it. Yeah.
Right. And actually, yeah, the reason you'd want to use this, I found this out when I got my iPhone 12. Apparently your health data disappears or it doesn't carry over from one phone to the other.
Unless you sync with iCloud and then it'll come back down.
Right. And I did not do that. The data wasn't critical.
Sure.
But
that's why you would use Health Data Importer is you would grab that and you could slurp it into your new phone and then repopulate. But yep, that's the key. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. So, John.
Yeah, the health data that I import actually is, so let me see. So one, I have a smart scale, which I think I told you about. And so the thing is, Health will import all of that stuff, not only, and some of these scales are pretty cool. So it's not just your weight, but it has your percentage of, BMI, about all sorts of very interesting statistics, and and Health can import that. The other thing I did, Dave, is that you had told me that you can do this. So certain labs will let you integrate, or Health is able to import blood test data.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a string of COVID negative, thankfully, COVID tests in my Health app from exactly that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I use Quest. So Quest has some sort of interface where they'll offer to import the data into Health.
Yep.
So
yep. Yeah. Yeah. No, the Health app it's pretty good. I like how it all pulls together. It's good. Mm-hmm. So John, all this talk of Apple ID reminds me of a conversation. Well, two conversations, in fact. One that I had with you here on this show about how you sent in or you sold your MacBook Pro and then someone was able to buy Apple Music for themselves on your tab with your old MacBook Pro, despite the fact that you had wiped the drive. And it reminds me of a conversation that I had this week with my friend Will, who is a consultant. He runs a business that helps people with their computers, right? And he called me this week to tell me a story. And the story was that for Christmas, a guy bought his wife a new, let's say a Mac Mini. I think it was a Mac Mini, but let's just say it was a Mac Mini. And he bought it, obviously on his Apple ID, but he never, other than grabbing the box and wrapping it, he never touched this thing. She unwrapped it on Christmas. She set it up. All was good. Except that at some point, and I'm not exactly sure how, I forget actually, I know Will knew. At some point, all of his text messages and contacts and all of that stuff were coming into her computer. She doesn't know his Apple ID password. He never touched her computer. He never would have logged into it. And all of these problems. And it's clear, based on all the troubleshooting that was gone through here, that and your experience speaks to this, there used to be a way for us to see all the devices that were attached to our Apple ID in Apple's ownership system. Now, when you log in to look at the things that are attached to your Apple ID, all you see are things that you have logged into with your Apple ID. And once you log out, they disappear from the list. But there was another list years ago that had nothing to do with Apple IDs. It was before Apple IDs even existed. And it was we have assigned this serial number of this machine to you. And even if you wiped it and gave it to somebody else and they had sold it to somebody else and they had sold it to even somebody else, it could still be attached to you until you went in and told Apple, which you could do in the interface, go away. Make this device not mine anymore. Okay. I am now convinced, John, that database still exists and is still populated when you buy a new machine. But the difference is we don't have the user interface for it anymore. And clearly it can cause some problems. You saw it with the Apple Music thing. Will saw it with this machine that mysteriously just started logging into this other iCloud account. So if you sell a machine, I think it's worth calling Apple and saying hey, can you remove this from the database that we all know exists that you don't let me touch anymore? And if somebody knows how to touch it, please let us know, because that would be super helpful, obviously. But right? Isn't this weird? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Another interesting thing happened, John. After one of the symptoms of this issue that my friend Will was having was that he could log in with her account or with his account, right? Because now they both have IDs on this machine. But when it came time to authenticate for any security operation, none of the admin accounts would work on this machine. Yeah. And so he tried all kinds of different things, called Apple, got him, tech support, yada, yada, yada. You got to reformat that thing, restore from a backup. Okay, great. So he reformatted it. He did not restore from a backup. Got it logged in, all good. When it came time to authenticate, no go. It's wait a minute, wiped the drive, still have the same symptom. What's going on? Call Apple again. They said, oh, that's a T2 chip issue. You need to reset your SMC. That'll solve it. And guess what? It solved it. So in retrospect, didn't need to wipe the drive to fix this problem. It's somehow the password database in the T2 chip got out of sync with the password database on the Mac. That may be an incorrect explanation of what's actually happening under the hood. But for those of us that for a good way of thinking about it, that's exactly what happened. The T2 chip's password database got munged. Even if I don't even know if the T2 chip has a password database. Just bear with me on this. But effectively, reset the SMC, it resets that, everybody's happy. So if you run into a problem where you cannot do the authenticate, with your password to install software, remove things, or whatever that is, reset the SMC. And you know what that makes me think of, John?
What?
Those of us that troubleshoot computers are going to be really screwed for the next 2 years with M1 Macs while we learn about these little things, because it's all brand new, different with those, because there ain't no SMC, as we talked about earlier in the episode. We talked about it with better grammatical form than I just used, but the message is the same. So, any thoughts on any of this, John? It's craziness, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. All right. So I want to read this is we tend not to talk too much about Apple news here because there's lots of other shows that do that. And we're going to break from that very, very briefly, but only because I want to make sure you know what we are and aren't doing with your data here when you listen to Mac Geek Gab. We do get some data from you simply by nature of you downloading the show from us, right? We get, at the very, very least, we get your IP address when you download it, and we get your user agent because it's effectively like a web browser pulling it down. So we have some data about you. We keep that data private. But I want to read something that Tim Cook says, and I want to explain to you what's going on in the podcast industry, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. So this was a thing that Tim Cook said this week. Technology does not need vast troves of personal data stitched together across dozens of websites and apps in order to succeed. Advertising existed and thrived for decades without it, and we're here today because of the path of least resistance is rarely the path of wisdom. If a business is built on misleading users, on data exploitation, on choices that are no choices at all, then it does not deserve our praise. It deserves reform. We should not look away from the bigger picture in a moment of rampant disinformation and conspiracy theory is juiced by algorithms. We can no longer turn a blind eye to a theory of technology that says all engagement is good engagement, the longer the better, and all with the goal of collecting as much data as possible. Too many are still asking the question, how much can we get away with, when they need to be asking, what are the consequences? So there are companies out there. I'll leave their names out of this, but you can actually, I won't leave their names out of this because I'm going to tell you how to find this is important. So there are companies out there that want to know if you listened to this show and also if you visited one of our sponsors' websites, right? We don't let them do this, again, just for clarity. But they are out there because they want to know, you know, if you want to let a company know that you listened to this show and bought from them, then you choose on your own to use our coupon code like an MGG or, you know, a special URL like mintmobile.com/MGG. That's fine. And to me, that's you choosing to use that. So there is at least some level of involvement from you that, yeah, you're telling them that you heard about this from Mac Geek Gab, which is great. But if you don't want Mint Mobile to know that you heard about this on Mac Geek Gab, you don't have to. You can just go to Mint Mobile and sign up, and we don't get any credit for it. And you know, I'd prefer them to know that you came through us, but I get it if you don't want to. That's your choice. That's how this works. Well, there are companies out there that want to have us redirect our podcast feed through their servers so they can collect IP address and user agent. And then and I don't think they're doing this with Mint Mobile, so I don't want to make Mint complicit. That's just my example. But on Sponsor X's website, they put a tracking pixel on there that collects the same information. And then they take these two databases and they relate them together. The problem is that Sponsor X might also get your name and your address and your email address and your phone number because you just bought something from them. And so now that data can be tied to their tracking pixel, which now can be tied to this. Now, let's say this show isn't a show about technology, but this is a show about bipolar, right? People with bipolar disorder. And you don't want anyone to know that you have bipolar disorder, but you definitely want to be anonymously part of a community that does. Maybe you don't want anybody to know that you're an Apple fan. And so you listen to this show and you think it's anonymous, and it is. But if we were to use this tracking stuff, it wouldn't be. And it's a really slippery slope. And when they first came to us a couple of years ago with this, we were like, dude, we've seen this on the web. We've been publishing on the web for 20 years. When people came, they're like, oh, all we're doing is just making sure that you as the host gets credit. And like, yeah, that's what they said to us 15 years ago on the web too. And then GDPR had to come into place because people weren't responsible with the data. And I think Tim really summed it up there. So at the moment, we aren't and have never participated in any of this tracking that's going on. If we change our minds on that, and I really don't think we will do our level best to tell you. But part of the problem is there's no way to get you to opt in. If we were using this kind of tracking, or for shows that are using this tracking, you download it before they tell you, because there's no opt-in in your podcatcher. Speaking of podcatchers, Overcast from Marco Arment will show you what trackers are used by each show. And you can go into the info, you subscribe to the show or whatever, go into the info and it will tell you Podsights, Podsights, and Chartable, Chartable, are two of the companies that are doing this type of tracking. They just contracted out, to anybody that can use it, of course. And technically, John, I don't think this is illegal. Certainly, technically, it's feasible. You said a very good thing, I'll let you say it because I'm gonna mess it up if I say it. So go ahead.
To wrap up this conversation, yeah, the way I concluded it, and I think you agreed, was, can it be done? Yes. Is it legal? Probably. Is it ethical? Probably not.
I agree. Yeah, and I'm looking at the Daily, the New York Times show, and there's in Overcast, and there's a little icon like right at the top of my thing for the Daily, and it says privacy and tracking, and it lists all of the services that the Daily use and what they're doing with it. And the Daily uses, it says for PodTrack, it uses for stats. Okay, that's fine. It uses Simplecast for hosting and stats. Okay, that's fine. Chartable for tracking and stats. Podsights for tracking. You see what, and the tracking is the one that Marco has like a big warning sign on, like may follow individual listener behavior across multiple shows or the web, often to track responses to ads. So beware, folks. We've got your back, but we can't change the industry, or at least we have been unsuccessful in changing the industry thus far. But I've actually been working really hard on this for a couple of years, just trying to get people to pay attention. So anyway, just wanted to make sure you knew, because it looks like a day of reckoning is coming towards our industry. And I wanted you to know where we stood before the subject came up. So thank you for bearing with me. Now I have a question. John, do you have any more on that? Because I have a question to kind of leave us with for the week.
I mean, the good news is that, I think you mentioned this, but I was fiddling here.
Okay.
Safari will now tell you the trackers that it has prevented from tracking you.
Right.
In the latest Safari, in Safari 14. So that's nice. So that's good for awareness to see who was trying to track you.
But you only get that in Safari. You don't, like Apple's Podcasts app does not yet have any way of A, telling you, or B, avoiding it. It'd be very difficult to avoid it. But if anybody can do it, Apple can. And I think we know where Apple's stance is on this. So I'm very curious to see where they land.
Right. The other thing that came to mind, so you were giving an example of someone wanting to correlate a health condition with other data, or potentially being able to do that.
Yeah.
The intent of HIPAA, Health Information Privacy Act, or Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, I think.
Okay.
No, that's something else. No, HIPPA, Health Information Privacy. If you've been to the doctor, you probably had to sign something where they have to disclose what they're going to do with your data and who they're going to give it to, and you have to opt in to that. If they're going to send your blood to somebody else, I guess, or send stuff outside of their privacy sphere, then they have to
tell you,
get your consent to do that.
That's right. Yeah. But a podcast does not have to get your consent, regardless of the subject matter of the podcast. It's a slippery slope. Everybody that I know in the industry personally that's agreeing to do this is doing it for the purpose of like, oh, we just want to know, like, did somebody listen? Because they know that if you listen to this show, you probably listen to 4 others. And let's say, you heard about Mint Mobile on this show. Again, Mint's the wrong example. Let's say you heard about sponsor X on this show, and then you heard about sponsor X on, on the next show. And they want to know, you might use our coupon code for it, but they want to give the other show credit too, because they know that it takes more than once to hear something before you buy usually. So they want to be able to sort of spread the credit around and say, actually, we should renew on show X because that is helping the whole overall picture. So it is with trying to solve a problem in the industry is it. But man, it's a slippery slope, and we humans have proven that we're not really good with this responsibly. So anyway, I want to ask a question before we spent 10 minutes on this. So thank you for your time. Hopefully you continue to trust us because all you can do is believe us. Well, you can check Overcast and see that, when you look at Mac Geek Gab and Overcast, it says there's it doesn't say privacy and tracking. It just says privacy. So that's good. And it says that there's two things. Mac Geek Gab is one of the things that it shows, and CacheFly, which it shows. And we tell you every week that all the bandwidth to get the show from us to you comes from CacheFly. So there you go. I have a question, though, that I want to leave us with for the week, John, and that is, what is your spam workflow? I realized this week that my spam workflow stinks because I'm not checking my spam as regularly as I should be. And I need to be better about it because I know I'm missing things that are just going into my spam folder. And then I use Gmail as my main spam sort of bucket. And it deletes things that have been in spam for more than 30 days. So there's a lot of things I don't see. I don't think I'm missing any email, but isn't that the point? So I'm curious. I want a better spam workflow. John, do you have a better spam workflow than me, or are you kind of in the same boat?
Yeah, so I use so for my Gmail accounts, that uses their mechanism, which sometimes gets it right, sometimes gets it wrong.
Right.
I also, in Mail.app, I have junk filtering enabled as well, and that snags some things too.
Okay. But
so those are the two things that. And then my workflow is maybe once a week, I'll look in my junk folder. And if I find anything that's not junk, I then drag it out. I think from what I recall, Google is smart enough to see that you did that and say, oh, okay, that wasn't spam. Sorry about that.
They're supposed to be smart enough to see that, but they aren't in my experience. But, there you go. So when I used to do this, and honestly, I'm truly embarrassed to admit this, but it has been months since I've gone through my spam folder. It's just been busy, and it's easy for it to be like, yeah, I'm not going to do that right now because it's a terrible process. And it also makes me feel filthy after I'm done reading through all those subject lines. Mm-hmm. But I would organize my spam folder. I would sort it by subject, and that made it more efficient for me to go through because there's so many pieces of spam that are either the same or very, very similar subjects. So I could just select, delete, and go through mad swaths at a time. And then the ones that were one-off subject lines really did stand out for me. So that is my workflow when I do it. So I'm curious if anybody else out there has I want to know what your workflow is. So please let us know. That's what I got. Once a week sounds like a good thing to me. I have it on my calendar every week, John, and I'm really good about following my calendar. That is the one thing that I guess because I gave myself permission to skip it a couple of weeks in a row at some point. Now it's just like, oh, I can skip that again. It's fine. The world didn't end, but I know I'm going to miss stuff. So I don't know. That's
at one point I used Spam Sieve.
Yeah.
Then I forgot why I stopped using it.
Well, it's not server based, right? I mean, the world has sort of moved away from local, because you have an iPhone and you can't run Spam Sieve on your iPhone, so you need it to be server based, at least by and large. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is, man, but hopefully we'll come together, like John Lennon said. Did you know that Come Together, John, it was written as a campaign song for someone? Did you know that? Okay, it was. I'm going to give you, let's say 2 guesses. In fact, I'm not going to tell you. I'll let John guess. If you get it right now, then I will. I'll say it in the show. Otherwise, we'll wait till next week. So 2 guesses, John. Any guesses as to who it would be?
JFK?
Nope. That's one.
Nope. Before or after?
It would be after JFK.
I don't know. Carter?
No. No, it was. I will give you this. The song was not successful. So much so that I don't need like this was not a candidate that made it to the national ballot. Let's put it that way. So, yeah. All right. Well, I'll make sure to share that next week because but hopefully one of you will write in with the answer because I'm sure one of you knows. In fact, I know of several listeners that if you don't know it, it will shock me. But it shocked me when I found this out, and I only found it out in the last couple of years. So anyway, there you go. But we come together and do this. We help each other. It's good. Thanks for listening, folks. Make sure to check out our sponsors, helixsleep.com/MGG, mintmobile.com/MGG, linode.com/MGG, textexpander.com/podcast. We told you how to contact us. Do you have anything to add, John, of how we would do this?
How to contact us?
I don't know. Or anything you want to add at all.
Hey, there's Twitter. I'm John F. Ron. He's Dave Hamilton. The podcast is Mac Geek Gab. The publication is Mac Observer. Oh, and there's Pilot Pete, who's piloting his heart out.
I miss Pilot Pete. Hopefully we can get him back here. Why can't we get him on camera with us? We could. I got to call Pete. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like we have the technology. I feel like we're the $6 million man. Except, not really. Maybe someday. That's it. That's what we got. Thanks for listening. Tell somebody about the show. Share it far and wide. And see you next week. John, do you have maybe one more thing to say?
I have not one, not two, but three things, Dave. And those three things are don't get caught.
Made on a Mac.
Sweet, we're out.